Hello and welcome to Who Books That with Harrison Greenbaum. I am your host, Harrison Greenbaum. Thank you so much for joining me today, Wednesday at 7 p.m. The show is every Wednesday at 7 p.m. If you're on the East Coast, it's 4 p.m. If you're on the West Coast, you also download or watch old episodes at whobooksthat.com. Whobooksthat.com also has a link to Apple Music where you can download all of the episodes. We are up to date now. All 22 previous episodes are available on Apple Music. You can download them as a podcast. A huge thank you to everybody who has downloaded the podcast and left a review. If you leave a 5-star review, that really helps make the podcast more visible on the iTunes and Apple Music service. As of now, we are in the top 100 podcasts in 5 different countries in the performing arts category, which is pretty nuts. So we got Japan, Germany, and a couple other countries we didn't fight against in World War II, United States, UK, and Canada. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So keep those coming. Those reviews are really, really helpful and much appreciated. And you also follow me on social media at Harrison Comedy. And last but certainly not least, a huge thank you one more time to President of the IBM, the International Brotherhood of Magicians, who sponsors and presents this show, Alex Zander, who has passed the reins to Stephen Bergazzi, who was a guest on our program last time, a surprise guest for John Darambos. So a huge congratulations both to Alex and to Stephen. If you'd like to join this incredible institution and organization, which makes programming like this possible, just go to magician.org/join the IBM/join. If you're listening to this as a podcast, Join the IBM has dashes between the join the IBM. So it's magician.org/join-the-IBM/join. I am so excited to bring our guest today. He is somebody I have had the honor to perform with, somebody I've had the thrill to hang out with. He was the front man for the popular band Possum Dixon. He was the bass player for that band. He is a 2-time winner of Stage Magician of the Year from the Academy of Magical Arts. He is an incredible performer. He has a book out, this great book called Strange Cures, which is available on Amazon and anywhere you can get books. This is a fantastic book. His lecture notes are fantastic. He's here for us now. I could not be more excited to be able to hang out with this guy. Make some noise. Get excited from your home or apartment. It's Rob ZABRECKY, everybody. How you doing?
Hey, everybody. I'm good. How are you doing, Harrison? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too. I was going to kick this off with a quote. I know one of your favorite books is The Catcher in the Rye. Is that correct?
It is, yes.
Holden Caulfield had a quote in the book, and he said, "I'm sick of just liking people. I wish to God I could meet somebody I could respect." And I think that is a good quote to describe how I feel about you and magic. Sometimes there's a lot of people I like in magic, but the people that I legitimately respect and are doing incredible and unique things for the art form, you definitely fall into that category. How's your quarantine been so far?
So far, so good. I haven't, been leaning on the side of being really safe and cautious about everything, food coming in and out, exercising in my backyard, taking online yoga classes, which you are quite familiar with, I know, because last time I saw you, I think you were in your yoga shorts.
That's right. That's right.
And in some ways, kind of, enjoying hunkering down and spending a lot of time at home with my wife and 3 dogs that I love very much. So.
And I feel like it's one of your routines that you're, I think, really well known for is your version of Dyson Men, the hug, hug, kill trick, which I think now every version of that, even the hug is a kill, right?
Yes, even the hug is a kill. Yes, exactly.
Have you thought about what your act is going to look like post-corona? Do you think you're going to have to make any modifications?
I haven't really thought about it, to be honest. No. I've always thought about magic in terms of in one pieces, things that I can just do. So, I love silent magic. I love performing to music where there's, it's just me in a spotlight and I don't have to worry about the variables of having, spectator, situations, which greatly vary. And I like the control of knowing that, like, okay, this is something that I can do just for the camera. And obviously in quarantine, I've re-examined all the things that work just for performing in this space. So I guess in some ways I have thought about it, but I mean, it's so hard to say what's gonna, what's gonna happen to the state of, being a live performer,
Yeah, I mean, let's start all the way back from the beginning. Your book, Strange Cures, the title alludes to something that happened to you when you were a kid. Can you tell us what the strange cure was and why you needed it?
Yeah, sure. So I was around 7 or 8 when I started getting a really bad case of warts on my fingers, and eventually they spread all across my hands. So I had about almost 50 of these warts, and go to the doctor, I'd get them burned off, and nothing worked. I went to Scotland when I was in 6th grade, 6th going into 7th with my family. It's my first big trip. I grew up in Burbank, California, not far from where I'm at now. And on that trip, my great aunt Nan looked at my hands, and she said, "There's a cure for those warts. All you need to do is go down to the River Dune and dunk your hands in cow dung every day for 2 weeks, and the warts will go away." So as a 12-year-old, I didn't know if she was putting me on or not, but I had about had it with this plague of warts that really made me self-conscious, and really kind of squeamish around other kids. And when they did see the warts, they were freaked out by them, and I was a bit of an outcast because of those warts. So I was willing to try anything.
Right.
And, I ended up kind of wandering down to the River Dune and waited for a cow to take a dump. And then against all odds, I'm like, what do I really have to lose here? And the answer was nothing, except for what little pride I had. But I dunked him in there and kind of just did what she said. I let the dung soak and dry on my hands like hot clay for 10, 12 minutes.
By the way, this is 7 p.m. on the East Coast, so I do hope nobody's eating dinner while watching this video stream at the moment.
I know one person is. Shout out to Beverly Key. Sorry, Bev. I know this is not exactly true. Anyway, rinsed off the dung and repeated that for about 2 weeks. And then I came back to California, and believe it or not, those warts, each and every one of them, shrunk back into my hands, and I entered the 7th grade as, what I would become a popular teenager, which was amazing because it was a complete transformation from being a shy, introverted kid, from having these warts to going to not having them. And that article that you just showed a second ago was the first time my name was ever in print. When 1980 comes, and the warts go away, and this small town, Patna, Scotland, about an hour outside of Glasgow, writes this article, Robbie's Strange Cure. And it's all about my trip there with my family, and how people thought I was kind of nuts, because it was in a small town like Patna, which is a small working farm town. An American kid walking through the town with crap mitts, a bit of a stir, and it did. So it was this amazing transformation. So I always had that article as like a little memento from my youth, I guess. And when it came around time to writing this book, I always thought, the name's gonna, the title would be Robbie's Strange Cure. It's a pretty good title. Until I had a chat with my good pal Derek Delgadio, amazing writer and magician, and he had read some of the passages. He's like, "No, the strange cures. You've had more than one cure. There's been more than one of these things, and your life's changed." And to broaden the focus a little bit, or broaden the span of what your story's about, isn't about this one incident with these warts, which is a really good story, but why not make it just strange cures? And that really resonated with me, and I stuck with it.
And one of the other medical things was something that was sort of I think there was a 33-year gap between the medical issue and the medical cure, which was that you were shot when you were a kid and didn't have the bullet removed until, I think it was 33 years was the period that elapsed between the incident and the removal.
Yeah.
I guess let's start backwards, which was, at what point in those 33 years did you realize enough is enough, I need to get the bullet removed? And then let's go backwards and find out why you had to get it removed in the first place.
Well, the first thing I'll say is the bullet and the warts had nothing to do with each other.
You were just very unlucky.
Well, I did. But I've been very lucky though too. So
That's right.
I can't. It doesn't all the scale. It all everything kind of balanced out. But what I had, the warts were very unique and special in their own way because most kids didn't have that many warts, and mine were a result of not eating any vitamin C. And later, I ended up, becoming a vegetarian and taking care of the health issues and started eating fruits and vegetables. But the other thing that I had that most kids didn't have was an uncle who was an FBI impersonator.
Right, so he told you he was in the FBI, but was not in the FBI.
Well, he wasn't. He was none of it. He was a machinist. He was a pathological liar who was crazy, and he had my family convinced that he did work for the FBI, Secret Service nonetheless for the FBI. Really weird, and carried around firearms with him. And when I was 12, he bought me a Winchester 25 caliber rifle and ended up shooting me with that rifle during kind of a target practice session. So he was pretty mentally unstable, and the bullet was lodged in my arm, for 33 years. By the time that we got home and my parents were informed about it, it was kind of stuck in there, and it was going to have to stay in for like, say, a couple of weeks for it to heal, and they were going to go and take it out. Well, they never got it. They never took it out. They just let it sit, and I let it sit. And decades of kind of bad dreams and being haunted by this metal bullet in my arm, I finally was like, enough's enough. I was in my 40s and I started feeling, I get like a pinched nerve in my arm and sort of have bad dreams about it. And occasionally, if I slept on it wrong, I it was pain. It could be painful, and mentally painful as well. So back to Burbank, right where I was born, 1968. Boom, they went in and cut the bullet, cut a hole in my arm and took the bullet out. Now it sits on my desk as a little reminder of my Uncle Ed.
Did your uncle impersonating an FBI agent prepare you for interacting with magicians who impersonate professional magicians?
Completely. He was a master at deception and fooling people and kind of like lived in this alternate reality. And later when I got into magic and in acting for that matter, that's kind of, that was definitely something that I went, oh, he was doing this for fun in his own delusional mind, but like there was a craft to it. So it was helpful. Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed about the cow poop story is that in it, I do feel like there is the genesis of your creative process, which is you don't know if it's going to work. Your aunt is telling you it's going to work, but there's no medical knowledge to say that sticking your hands in the poop is going to cure what ails you. But you commit to it 100%. You do it. You keep doing it even if you're not sure it's going to work. And it's that combination of commitment, experiment, and risk that ends up yielding a good reward. And I feel like that's something that's very present in your work. Do you think there's like a connection between that?
100%. I mean, I've always kind of, left without the net. I didn't go to college. I graduated high school barely, and had some conceit that I could be a professional. There I am at 16, doing my first garage band, also right in Burbank. With this conceit that I could be a musician and have a band and tour and make records and do stuff that I dreamed about as a kid. And I wasn't naturally talented. I wasn't somebody who was like some virtuoso. It was like, oh, it was a no-brainer. I was going to be a rock and roll star. It was just some wild fantasy that I had, like any other kid had. Like my friend down the street, when we'd play air guitar to like Cheap Trick and Kiss records when we were little kids. But I somehow believed in myself that I could do that, and I made it happen. My other bandmates did go to college, and while they were kind of getting their degrees, I was doing all the heavy lifting, getting flyers, Xeroxed, and going out in the clubs and sort of doing all the things that you got to do to promote yourself, especially in the kind of late 80s underground world kind of scene community that I came out of in LA. It was a real DIY thing. Everything you did, you had to do it on yourself. And to do that, you had to believe in what you're doing. So that carried on. There's some part of me that thinks that I can do this stuff. And that led to when I got into magic, it was the same thing. I just went, oh, that's super interesting. I can't think about anything else but this art form now, magic, let's just say. And it became such an obsession that I just thought, yeah, I think I can do this.
Well, one of the things I wanted to touch on, because I think one of the things that strikes me about you is you're very cool. As you bring up a very cute dog. Hello.
This is Gypsy, everybody.
Hi. I'm always happy to have animal guest stars. That is a consistent thing. Oh, hello. One of the things I think people would say you're cool. You're actually prom king, which is usually reserved for a cool kid in high school. But one of the things I think that usually the definition of cool is the absence of caring. It seems effortless. And yet on the other hand, everything that you've done, your music, your magic, even your acting, where you were, sweeping the floors and cleaning bathrooms in order to afford acting classes, was very, very hard work, very diligently done. So how do you balance that? Like how do you have the cool, not caring demeanor, like or not caring, but the detachment, the coolness, while on the other hand, working your butt off?
Well, I mean, I can't really talk to like being cool. If you think I'm cool or anyone does, that's amazing and neat, and that's like a kind of a gift, I guess, in life, to if someone admires you that way, because who doesn't
That's
want
the coolest answer. Cool people don't say they're cool.
Yeah, you can't, right? You can't. It's just not. You can't really. You can't subscribe to that. But what I can believe in and know about is hard work, and like I've always known that I'm average on just about every level across the board when it comes to anything. And when I want something, I got to work probably harder in some ways, because the way that I think my brain works strangely. Plus, I've blown some brain cells along the way. I know we're, don't. Anyway, so I feel like I need to work super hard to get anything done, and so that's to diligently sort of figure out how to do something is different than just like going to see the Ramones or whatever.
Well, I think that's a really good lesson, because there are a lot of magicians. There's even in the comments, one of the first comments that popped up as soon as we went live was from, where is he? He's coming up. There we go. Alan Sphinx saying, "Hi Rob, you are my inspiration." And I think you have inspired a lot of magicians. And I think one of the dangers of watching an act that is as fully formed and polished and as good as yours is that they don't see all the hard work that goes into it. So they don't know that it is achievable. It seems almost unachievable, because you can't start from zero and then get to ZABRECKY immediately. It requires years of work.
Exactly. Anything that's hard takes a long time. You know that. I mean, you've got a solid, your act is so well fully formed and amazing for so many different reasons. And yeah, I doubt you just popped in, you don't just fall into this stuff. It's really hard. And like for anyone to say that is a huge thing. Thank you, Alan. I'm glad to know that I inspired you in some way. But man, I mean, like I said, when I came to magic, especially, you can ask any of my friends who knew me back then, I was not a fish to water. It was really, really, really hard for me. I was not a gifted guy. I didn't just start doing double lifts, out of the gate. It was like I had to really sit down and think about this stuff, and had a lot of help. But what I did have was a burning desire to do it. And I think that's the trick with anything, is you have to want it so bad, and know that like you got to breathe it and live it and want it, and almost put no boundaries on how hard you're going to go to do that. And for me, I've always wanted to be a performer, so when I made the transition from music into magic, and even magic into acting, in some ways it's all built on the same basis of it's hard work, it's technique, it's every day. I won't even tell you the insanity of what I like, of how I rehearse. I mean, I will tell you if you want to hear, but like,
yeah. The way I hear you wake up at like 6 a.m. every day and practice diminishing regards. Then there's a dance section to warm up.
On a good day, yeah. During COVID, things have gotten a little, the lines are getting a little fuzzy, but if I know I've got a performance coming up, believe me, I want it to be right. I want to do good. I want people to like me. I want to hit the marks that I'm aiming for. And there's obviously in magic, you get to a point where there's only so much you can do. You learn all your moves. You can learn the script. You can get the script in your bones, but it's not till you're out there in the trenches talking to an audience that you start connecting with them. And obviously, as you know, from being a comedic improv performer, that's where the magic comes in. Furthermore, in playing live music, you got to be out there and connect with an audience, and especially in acting, when you're talking to another performer, you can learn your lines, but you can't learn a line read and then go in and you're expecting someone to cry and they end up laughing and slapping you in the face. You've got to be able to, you've got to talk to that, and you've got to do it fast. And how do you do that? Well, you know your lines. You're so prepared that you're ready to sort of like go to battle, and then it becomes fun. But anything less than that, I'm in a state of panic. I'm sweating. I want to tear my shirt off, run down the street, and like jump into traffic. Like those are the stakes for me. It's crazy how important performance is to me. It shouldn't be so important.
No, I think it shows. It's something that I always tell people when they talk about scripting, which is you can't go off-roading if you don't have a map. The only reason that I can veer off of my script is because I know exactly how to get back on the road. Right. I didn't know that I would never come back. I once opened for Richard Lewis, and I remember it was a weird performance because he never came back to some of the punchlines. So it just felt like a premise would lead into the next premise to the next premise. And an audience kind of thinking like, wow, if he nets everything at the end, it's going to be spectacular. And it kind of almost never did. But at
the end, was he able to loop it back in?
Oh, no, I think he was just really, really distracting himself.
Oh, okay. Well, he's on his own. Richard Lewis is kind of on his own island anyway. So
and he's earned it. He's definitely earned that. Do that. But you mentioned traffic, and I think that's a good thing to the vote because this also involves you jumping into traffic. You were asked by John Lovick about originality magic. And you said, I see so many people doing so many of the same routines and the same stock thing they got from a magic shop, or they've stolen this person's thing because it works for that person, but it doesn't work for them. It drives me crazy. It makes me want to smash all my props and run down the street and jump into traffic.
Precisely.
So one thing, should we be nervous about you being near traffic? It feels like a repeated theme.
Maybe.
Also, I think
as long as I don't pay too much attention to, other magicians, because what do I care, right? It's like that's their. Here's what I've learned. I've grown since then. That's their problem. If somebody wants to be mindless and copy and paste Derek Hughes' act or his demeanor and then go on national TV and do that, I have no control over that. I don't, and I've since learned to let go. And I feel more free because of it.
But for those who are watching who want to do the right thing, you've also written a whole thing on essentially scripting, originality, theatricality, incredible lessons in these lecture notes. But you come into magic as a musician. You come in what we consider relatively late. A lot of magicians have that story where they're 5 years old, and that's when they start doing magic, and it's a lifelong thing. You accidentally end up in a magic shop because it's air conditioned, right? Is that the genesis of your love for magic?
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I know. I had zero interest in magic. It had almost an anti-effect on me because when I was a little boy, I was at a school assembly and a Ronald McDonald character came to our school to tell us about the virtues of eating good food like McDonald's and getting up.
A great lesson.
I know. It's really crazy when I think back on it. And then invited me on stage to do a little magic trick, and he poured evaporated milk into my head, and it was very embarrassing and mortifying. Not so much, not that he was doing anything that was that crazy, because he was just doing what he was there to do. But it greatly embarrassed me, and I really kind of relegated magic to being, cartoony and clowny, and not. I didn't see the art form in it until much later, and then. Yeah, all these years later, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, and I stumble into Kenzo's Yogi Magic Mart because I'm looking for an air conditioner. I just wanted to get out of the heat. It was a hot.
Was he actually Indian, or was this a fully culturally appropriated magic shop?
That's a good question. It's just standard magic shop. It was just standard magic shop right there in downtown.
It's white guy with a ponytail claiming to be a guru.
I know, it has a funny name, and it's not since gone now. Kenzo's Yogi Magic Mart. But it was like a real Twilight Zone episode, walking into this empty magic shop, as you can imagine, in the middle of summer, downtown Baltimore. Not a lot of people buying magic, but I went in to cool off. And once I kind of got my head around the idea that I didn't want to just be loitering in this man's shop and wanted to buy something, I ended up buying what was my first magic trick that I performed, oddly, that night on stage, which was kind of amazing. That I had the wit about me to not vanish the small green silk handkerchief that he had sold to me, but to vanish a wrapped prophylactic from the audience. And here's the pictures to prove it. This is me. I can't believe, and it's amazing. I can't believe these pictures exist, because somebody obviously took them. But there I am, whole 28 years old, playing the bass. I asked someone for a wrapped condom. They throw it on stage. Middle picture, I'm showing it. And then in that far picture, it's gone. And I got to say, my left hand does look pretty relaxed, which is, in retrospect, I imagine it feeling like it was probably weighed like 1,000 pounds. For magician will know why, but it actually looks pretty good. So anyway.
And from that point forward, you started incorporating magic tricks into your rock performances. How does the audience react to that? Because you have an audience that doesn't know they're gonna be seeing magic at all. They're expecting Possum Dixon. So what are your first audience's reactions to that magic?
Well, making a condom vanish is novel. It's maybe clever and cute for an aside between two songs, and it can make somebody laugh. But I took it to an extreme of putting a 15-minute experimental noise jam session in the middle, where I was doing like fire pans and delights and paper flowers. Anything I could find in a magic shop. It was blinking ropes. It was crazy, and all people would do they tilt their heads and look at me like, "What is this?" I bought a ticket to hear, this band's music, these certain songs, and I was having none of it. And one night, Peter Buck from REM was at one of our shows in Seattle, Washington, and afterwards, I was talking to him, and I'm kind of fishing around, like I kind of wanted to hear what I admired him greatly. I was kind of waiting for, I wouldn't say a compliment, but like maybe a good show would have been like perfect, fine even. And
right.
he turns to me, and goes, I've seen a lot of people do a lot of things, but never seen anybody do that before. And that was it. And so, my little magic show, I don't think went over so great with members of REM. But that was kind of it for everybody was looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And all I could do was think, I can't not do this.
Right.
I had an obligation to a record company to be on tour and to go out and promote, a couple records, and all I wanted to do was do magic. And later, when I was in the studio with Rick Ocasek from the Cars in New York, this is at Electric Lady Studios in the West Village, 1997. Every break we had, every time I could put the bass down, I would run off to the magic store to Flosso Horniman or Tannen. Yeah. There's a place called ABC Magic in the 90s that was there up by Empire State Building. Really cool, big magic shop, long gone. Anyway, all I could do was obsess and go to these places and just buy stuff, watch any trick anybody did. It didn't matter, as you know, getting into magic. You just buy it, and then you later on figure out that it's probably not for you. But that's where I saw the Diminishing Cards performed first there in New York with Tommy, with my wife, and this guy. I wish I knew who it was. He was performing, did it like a Sunday show, and it was an amazing performance. And I bought it, and then I came back and sort of incorporated that trick into what I do, and it's been a staple ever since.
Well, one thing, we're going to get back to that in just a second, because I want to ask, because some of the tricks in your act are classic, but you do it in obviously a way nobody else on the planet is doing it. And I think that process is really interesting. But one of the posters I dug up of Possum Dixon is very magic-y. Did that happen with your interest in magic in mind at that point?
Not
or was that a weird coincidence?
Totally weird coincidence. The other coincidence about that poster is that artist, Camille Garcia, which I haven't seen that in a while, she went on to become a famous artist. And that poster now, if it shows up on eBay or whatever, it the value in the poster being a Boston Dixon, maybe it's worth $20, but because Camille Rose Garcia did it's 120. You know, like she went on to do really great stuff. That was a Friday the 13th show. She just she ran with it. So I don't know. I'm glad she did.
And one of the things too, and you define a little bit punk rock in Strange Cures, and part of that is sort of being rebellious, having a non-caring attitude in a way, anti-authority, like a Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye. So doing magic when they expect you to do music might be the most punk rock thing you could possibly do. And one of my favorite quotes from the book is, you said, "Reinventing myself from musician to magician is the most punk rock thing I've ever done."
I stand by that. But I got to define, I need to define punk, because it's got, that word has gotten very muddied in popular culture over the years. By punk, I'm not talking about mohawks and safety pins and purple hair. I'm talking about an ethos of thinking for yourself and being your own person, and coming to terms with the fact that most of the information that you get in life is not right. And it can often be very distorted. In my case, having an uncle who was an FBI impersonator was like, oh, this is what, does this happen everywhere? Is this the reality of the world? You know, like I had to like figure out that authority figures weren't always who I thought they were going to be, and they turned out to be very different people than that. And so, by punk, I'm meaning like by taking in, you know, whatever reality you're in and going, what's my take on this? What's my stand? And how do I really feel about it? And do I have an artful way of reflecting this against the world? That is what punk means to me.
And I think also that that's something magic needs more of, in the sense of most people, and I've lectured on this, but the idea that people, they buy the trick and they maybe modify it and then they shove it right in their act, which is not a thing you see in other art forms. And do you think the fact that you were writing your own music about things that were very important and internal to you, do you think that informed your magic process and sort of pushed you into that direction of originality and creating your own stuff from scratch?
100%. When I first went to the Magic Castle in the mid-late 90s, I was seeing people that were very sort of punk in their own ways, and I'm talking about even people like Mike Caveney, Tina Leonard, Chris Hart, John Levick, Fitzgerald, people that were able to sort of and all those people in their own ways did tricks that, not all of them, but did material that was widely available to in at least Tarbell, let's just say, in certain magic books. And they were able to reinfuse these tricks with point of view and with story and with character, that you go, oh yeah, something magical just happened, but it's almost like it was secondary to the character. Like John Carney always talks about that. He says, I want people to remember me more than they do my magic effects. And I've been conscious of that. It's not something that I don't demand it in my performances, because you can't. It's something that you can't. You can't bank on that. You can hope that happens, but at the end of the day, they might be like, oh yeah, that guy just did the shrinking cards. That's it. Like, you don't know what people are gonna, what they're gonna walk away with. But you can greatly stack the odds in your favor by having story and character and really believing who you are when you're going out there. That they will walk away with, oh, that was a really interesting performer or performance.
Yeah, and I think when people describe your diminishing cards, they might not even refer to the cards. They might say, the thing with the dancing, which I think is one of the striking things about that. Yeah. When the character of Odd Man, which I think is that the right way to refer to the Zabrecki on stage, is the Odd Man?
Sure.
When Odd Man is dancing, does he know he's being silly, and does Rob know he's being silly, or are both people taking it very seriously?
Oh yeah, no, he is putting on the dance of a lifetime. He's at the talent show, and he's doing the best. He's interpreting all of these dances that he's seen and absorbed on television and old films, and he's throwing it right back to you, putting on the best performance that he thinks is right. As the whole performance of the Odd Man character is that it's Herman Munster. It's he thinks he's normal, and everything in his world is totally straight, and all of you people out there are completely nuts. And so with that thesis, like with that in the characters, is the characters kind of like in that mindset, it's really easy to look through a magic book and go, oh, I'm going to try this routine. I'm attracted to this, and then write a script based on with that thing in mind. Like beauty in the darkness is another sort of big theme that I kind of wrap my head around when I'm writing material for my show, and that becomes really easy to sort of do that. So I always try to find an angle when I'm writing to find, pretty things in ugly, dark places.
I love that because when I always describe the two kinds of acts that you can be, it's either you're normal and the world is crazy, or you're crazy and the world is normal. But I've never, because I wouldn't consider in my mind, I'm a normal person trying to comment on the crazy world, how crazy the world is around me, which is like the stand-up comedian mode of thinking. But I never thought of, I always thought, oh, of course, Odd Man is crazy and the world is normal. That's the act. But to Odd Man, he is normal and the world is crazy. So it depends on who's talking and who's describing the act. And so I've never thought of it that way. I love that.
That's a good point. The prettier the girl, the more oddly strange and exotic she is. Oh, where did people look like this? Like, a blonde looking, sort of, the most average woman can be like the most exotic bird to me. And that creates a certain amount of like curiosity in the audience's part. We're like, how is he not seeing what we're seeing? And I think that's part of the fun,
And one of the things that we alluded to a little bit is, so you meet your now wife, Tommy, at the Viper Room, where you performed as a musician. By the way, a weird quirk, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I think I was the first person to do stand-up and magic in the Viper Room. This is a very old picture of me without a beard at the Viper Room.
I love it. Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's me looking. I don't know why I look so confused in this photo. Maybe I'm wondering why they're taking the photo.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I don't know anybody that's. You're the first person I've known of who's filled that slot. When were you there? It looks like it was quite a long time ago.
That was 2010. I had to literally reboot and I had to find an old laptop in order to locate the photo because it didn't migrate over to my current laptop.
Amazing, love it.
I made a very poorly timed joke about River Phoenix that I think did not go over super well in the Viper Room.
Yeah, that one is, that's some sacred ground, I think. There.
Yeah,
still.
But you meet your wife at the Viper Room. She becomes your first magic partner. You're Griffith and Clementine. She's also the person that takes you to the Magic Castle. And so one of the things that is throughout your work is sort of collaborating, listening to other voices. She, as much as she was also part of the act, even when she's not on stage with you, she's somebody that you thank in the book and credit with a lot of. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the collaborative process and what using outside voices in order to help what you're doing?
Sure. I mean, just to talk to that picture a little bit, and the genesis of that is, I didn't know what I was getting into with magic. I fell into it, and she was amenable to kind of having an act out of the gate, and with zero performance background. I was the one who had been in the band, made records and stuff. And so we did about 20 shows as Griffith and Clementine. And I think she came to the
And your first show, by the way, was very high profile. Most magicians ease their way into magic, but you were on a very big show when Griffith and Clementine debuted, right?
Big mistake, yeah, in front of the Hollywood elite, like the coolest people in Hollywood as far as bands go, and packed house at the Roxy Theater up the street from Viper Room. And we went over, I would say, not great, and people were kind of scratching their heads like, that's the guy from Possum Dixon. What's he doing? Why does he have that makeup on? And why is he doing? Is this a joke? Like, it was because we just didn't have the years of stagecraft, and I was still like figuring out how delights worked. So there was that. Anyhow, pretty quickly, Tommy realized that she did not want to pursue the life of a performer, but was really good and just as creative as anybody I worked with as a writer, producer, director. So she jumps behind the curtain and starts like writing some of what I would consider like staples of my act and stuff I've become pretty well known for, and been hired to go to other countries so I can kind of peek behind the curtain and look at them just so they can get this certain laugh because of a joke that she thought would be funny. And so we just started kind of riffing on the stupidest things that ended up kind of being funny and working in my act. And great, it's been a great like 20-year collaboration. We're going strong, and it's just like the more stupid and out there that our ideas are, the more they seem to work, which is really great. So there's been a real evolution to it, and it's been really fun. And at no point has it felt like it's stagnant. Even though I still perform diminishing cards regularly in some of those routines, there's things that I do to make them interesting and exciting each time, to reinvent them. And I don't want to do, as much as I like doing my act script sort of as verbatim as possible, I find new ways to interpret myself. And I realize I'm aging, my audience is aging, new people are coming into it. It's this moving thing, and you have to really respect that. And I feel like every couple of years, I always renew the idea of who I think I am and what I'm trying to do in entertainment, and how I'm aging with the art, because a lot of people don't in magic, and they get you get stuck in this one thing. And you're like, a joke that worked 10 years ago at the Viper Room might not be working. The River Phoenix joke, I don't know.
No, I don't think it ever worked. Let alone
never worked.
But no, there's nothing more that I love the guy who was the 20-year-old sexy magician, who's now the fat, not sexy 50-year-old magician, but has not adjusted the act accordingly.
And won't. And it's like, that's my act, it's working, and so there you go. I mean, actors get stuck in there in the same thing where they'll learn a character and they'll get kind of hired to do that, and they'll do that their whole career. And you certainly see it in magic. In music, there's plenty of bands that I toured with that still go out because they're known for a handful of songs, and they're basically expected to do those songs, and it's part of kind of who they are. But hopefully they find ways to reinvent themselves and still have fun with it.
Yeah, and who else have you collaborated with? Like, in terms of, have you had directors and people really, who in official capacity also collaborating with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, John Lovick, next to Tommy, Lovick has been right there for me in every aspect of my magic career. I knew him when I was like really not, I would say, a terrible performer. I'm not just saying that to like sound self-effacing. I was not good, and he was there to remind me of that. And still,
well, actually, he's here to remind you of it again.
Oh,
gentlemen, it's handsome Jack himself.
Oh, what? Oh, hello. I'm looking through here, and I don't see my name anywhere. So,
no. I will tell you that I have it highlighted. There's one passage.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I haven't gotten to the good part yet.
Yeah,
then
it's back in by. It's very far down. He's had a lot of life up until then.
You saved the best for last. Okay, I get it. No, I do want to say, actually, since we got it, this book is fantastic. It is a roller coaster ride. It ends when Rob decides to become a magician. It covers his high school years. He had the strangest. What? Huh?
I said, spoiler alert. He becomes a magician.
Yeah, he becomes a magician. Sorry, spoiler alert. It covers his childhood, which, as you know a little bit, starting with getting shot by his uncle, he had one of the craziest childhoods. And then it's the 10 years that he was a rock star and drug addict. And I said to Rob, this book is great. I said, your second memoir is not going to be nearly as good. And he said, oh, God, I hope not.
That's fair. One of my favorite parts of, there's a Genie article about Rob, a cover story, and there's a little description of John Lovick, Handsome Jack, which is John Lovick is not, as they say, everyone's cup of tea. Certain castle members, grown men, have been known to avoid the castle library on nights that Lovick is manning in its place. The gripes of Lovick never go to the truth or value of his words, though. It is chiefly his reticence and reluctance to issue the expected courtesy, chuckle, or praise for the merely ordinary that causes discomfort. So Lovick is most often assailed for an excess of candor. That candor is precisely what Zabrecky values in Lovick's advice. So I guess, Rob, if you want to speak a little bit to this, as well as John, the value of not sugarcoating it, and why obviously his reputation precedes him, but he is somebody who will tell you whether something is bad or good, without worrying about how that makes you feel, because that's what you need to grow as an artist.
I'll speak to that, but I must preface it by saying those are not my words. Those are the guy, the author of that article. Those are his words. I did not say that. And I don't disagree with him, and I don't think Jack will either. But those who know Jack know how serious he is about this stuff. And I can't think of anyone who is more serious than Jack. He does not pity the fool. It's not in his DNA to do that. But when he sees something that works, he appreciates it on a level that few can, because he really does see the art in this stuff. And that's what it takes. An art form like magic needs, oh, that's an awesome photo. I've never seen that. Needs people like Jack who are in there to be straight about it. Derek Delgadio is another guy like that who is extremely, he has a great reverence for the art form, and he doesn't accept some of the levels of where, magic has lived for a long time. And I'm not, no disrespect to anybody, but he does see magic as an art form, and he sees it can be a lot. It can go to a lot more places than it's been. That's not well said, but you can take that idea and run with it.
No, I think it's a point well made. I also think that just less people think that John is, because John is an amazing person, and an amazing talent, and an amazing director. Also very patient too. I don't want to make it sound like he's impatient, because when you were starting out in magic, Rob, I believe you paid him, I think the rate was $40 an hour to learn card college. Can you talk us a little bit through meeting somebody who's paying you for magic lessons all the way up to becoming a fellow trustee on the board of the Academy of Magical Arts at the same time? That's quite a friendship journey. Yeah,
there's a lot to say there, and I'll try and do it without stretching this out too long. But I met, there we go, the dynamic duo. So I met Rob soon after he started his interest in magic. When he first started going to the castle, he saw me perform and hired me to give him lessons. And I taught him, we went through, card college and taught him the basics of magic. And if you had asked me at the time, so has this guy got, a future in magic? Is there any hope for him? I would have said, not a chance. But I'll take his $40. Because he, like he said earlier, it was not like a fish to water. He did not have a strong aptitude for it. But I will tell you what he had a desire to get better and a strong work ethic. And there were people, I'm going to try and do a graphic thing here on the screen. There were people who, like, when Rob started out, there were people like, I'm going to get over here. And is that, no, I have to get here. There were people like that were here in magic, and Rob was, down here. And over the years, Rob, was going like this and this, and the people just doing the same thing stayed here. And over the years, Rob got up, and then boom, boom, boom. And eventually he was off the charts, one of the most popular magicians, in the world, because he worked every day. And he gathered people who gave him good advice, and he listened to the advice, and he incorporated it. It's the old ant and the grasshopper story. And back when the castle was still open, I would give tours with to friends or people who'd never been there, and they would have a poster of that year's award winners. And Rob, as you know, has won, I think, 6 awards from the AMA. Is that correct? 6 or 7, Bobby?
6.
6. Okay, he's won 6 awards. And we'd stop and I go, these are all the award winners. I go, oh, and here's Rob ZABRECKY, who won whatever award it is. I said, I was one of his very first teachers in magic 20 years ago. He hired me to give him magic lessons. And now 20 years later, he's won 6 awards from the Academy of Magical Arts, and I've won 1. And you know why he's won 6 awards and I've only won 1? Because he had a better teacher than I did. But that's what's been great, is because Rob's really one of the world's great performers. And if you ever see him perform music, which occasionally he'll do music shows still, like maybe once a year, he'll book some sort of gig where he's just playing music, and you see him do those shows, and I will put him right up there with any rock star you can name, Mick Jagger, whoever. I will put him up there as a world-class performer, and he brings that kind of power to his magic in a very twisted, unusual way.
Yeah, it's not fair, Rob. You're not allowed to be that good at that many things. It's not. You got to leave something on the table for the rest of us.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was really glad I got to catch when I was in LA was you guys did a Peller show where you traded acts. So Handsome Jack did Zabrecky, Zabrecky did Handsome Jack. What is that process like? Because one of the things that was remarkable was the material was so strong, but that you can see where the other person was in it, but also your characters are so strong and so different that you can see how just putting it through those different lenses changed the material. Was that something? Were there things that were unexpected from doing that process of trading acts for a week?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I will say the first thing for me that was unexpected was we thought it was going to be a breeze, because obviously I know Rob's material better than probably anybody because I've worked with him since day one. And back there was about 18 months where Rob was doing a regular show at the Steve Allen Theater. And, I directed every one of those shows. And so every month we were there tweaking everything. So I know Rob's material backwards and forwards, and he knows mine pretty well. Yeah, there's the man. And that's the moon from that show. And so we thought this is going to be a breeze. And he knows my material. No problem. We'll just walk. It kicked both of our asses. It's really, really hard to do someone else's act.
Although so many magicians have tried.
Yeah. That's the thing. And so that was the first thing about how hard it is to do someone else's material. And the other thing I'll throw in before I let Rob answer this is, here's what we didn't know. We were going to do each other's material, each other's acts, but what we didn't know is if we were going to maintain our own personas or also adopt each other's personas.
Right.
So we rehearsed for a couple of months, and the first month we would do everything both ways. We would do the act kind of as each other's personas and then kind of as our own personas. And it worked both ways. They were very different and very interesting in their own way. And so we kept going back and forth. Are we going to swap personas or just material? And we went back and forth. And finally, what we decided was, when I hear a cover song, I don't want the cover song to sound exactly like the original.
Right.
I want it to sound like that band. And that's when we decided we're going to maintain our personas, but just do the other person's material. Yeah.
And it was interesting because there were people in that audience that weren't familiar with your acts. It was the first time seeing either of you perform. And one of the people in the audience who I think might have seen you prior was this guy. Yeah. was it doubly nerve-wracking to not only be performing for Teller, which is pretty exciting, but to be doing the other person's material? Did that make it harder?
Yeah. Yes, it did. Yes. The stakes were it was suddenly like, oh no, this is a disaster. Should we just go back to our own acts for a second? Like it was pretty nerve-wracking. Yeah. It
wasn't the ideal circumstances for Teller to see us, but he was, and he didn't see our best performance. It wasn't our best audience. It was a very quiet crowd. The show right before Teller came in, raucous audience. The Teller he saw, they mostly just sat there. So it was.
Before is always amazing. That's always the running joke is you should have been here last week. I think there's a podcast called that.
But Teller was very kind, and it was fun. And it was interesting that people who didn't know either of us just thought the show was fine. And they thought, oh, fun show with two fun performers, Well,
that speaks to the strength of the material. I mean, Rob, when you took your material back after that week, was there anything different?
I mean, I had a greater appreciation for it, having seen Jack perform it and kind of watching him go through the script and sort of like, I think I did recalibrate it in a certain way, because I there was a greater appreciation, obviously, for for what he was doing, obviously I was doing his act. So I was trying to find all these nuances in his material, which he had been, when you do something for 10, 15, 20 years, it's in your blood and bones. When you do something for 4 months, it's in on a certain level, but it's not, it's not there. So yeah, I think I was able to like step back from it. It was like hearing someone do a cover version of one of your songs and go, oh wow, that's a different interpretation of it. And here I do it again, and like, oh okay, like it's somehow it's in there, and it added to the overall.
Yeah, there's one thing that I got out of it. One of the oldest tricks in my repertoire. Been doing it literally since the very first time I performed at the Castle, whatever it was, 25 years ago. It's the Win a Date with Handsome Jack routine. And there's a part in the routine where I describe what the date is going to be like. This, woman I bring up from the audience, she gets a chance to win a date with Handsome Jack. And I describe it in a big, elaborate, expensive date. And I've been doing that same script for like 30 years. But when Zabrecky did it, he like really made the date come alive. He like painted a picture and talked about.
I remember that.
And he was like describe it and it's sort of making it come alive. I went, wow, that's really great. And so I've incorporated just a little bit of that, like trying to make it come alive and not just saying we're going to do this and this and this and then we're going to do this and this and this and this. So that's something I learned from watching him do, that routine.
And I think that speaks also to your voices and the material that you created, which is that you want to have, first of all, be original enough that if somebody else does it, they know it's a cover. But also to have material so strong that it can withhold those kind of changes. And I also just, in terms of going back to that punk rock theme of experimental and experimenting, that was in the Peller, which is like an experimental venue. Rob, have you done any other Peller shows?
I have. I've done a lot of Peller shows and with a lot of performers over the years. I mean, the origin of the Peller 15 years ago was that it was no man's land, and the Castle was not doing good. You could go to the Magic Castle on a weekend and there was nobody there. It was really quiet, and it was before Neil Patrick Harris had kind of come in as president and kind of saved the face of magic as it is in pop culture, and really kind of like created an awareness to it that young people are doing this, and it's not this antiquated art form. And so I was with a little group called the Unholy Three, David Lumberine, the drummer from the Pixies, another musician, magician, and my good friend Fitzgerald. And so we were going down there and doing shows every weekend in the Peller and kind of like finding our way doing music down there. I was playing guitar, and while they were doing magic, and like David was playing drums, we kind of like started kind of mixing up the idea of what could be done down there. So when they started booking shows in the Peller, I had already collaborated with a lot of people, obviously Jack, and I got to and a cast of my best friends in magic, including Derek Hughes, David Kovac, John Carney. There's what's that? Eugene Berger. I got to work with Eugene Berger down there. I mean, really, like, it was an amazing kind of run of shows that I got to do down there with a lot of people, and it was always really inspiring because you have that weekend to sort of write, produce, and self-direct something that's going to hopefully make your acts, bring your acts together. Obviously, what Jack and I did, I would never do again, and wouldn't let any magician. Don't do it. It's far too much work, and it'll drive me nearly crazy. But like, for example, with my buddy David Kovac, we became cousins from distant parts of the land, and it was really funny, and it was a Christmas show, and it was like you got to kind of put on these music cues and really just. Well,
I will tell you, this was very difficult to do, but I've managed to get a webcam into Carpathia itself so that I could bring you your cousin from Carpathia, David Kovac.
Oh, hey. Hi there, everybody. I was just sitting here reading my volume 1 of Card College with my $40 bookmarks. I'm wondering if you're free anytime soon.
For the price of one bookmark, I'll go through chapters 3 through 7 with you.
Outstanding. Yeah. I mean, I felt like somebody should, get a little bit dressed up.
You dressed down a little bit for this. Did you not know that this was kind of a big to do?
I've been listening. Yes.
Hi, David.
If you draw a backward C, it just looks like somebody's outfit is getting worse. You have a tie and then a jacket and then just the shirt and then a V-neck.
T-shirt, yeah.
He's done very well.
It's been really fun to listen to this and to see some old friends. You know, it's just a delight. So thanks for doing this, Harrison. It's a lot of fun.
Erica Larson's out there. So I'm going to give a shout out to our good friend Erica, who I got to say has been the guiding light. The past 15 years of the Magic Castle has taken off and created this space for us to work in a positive way. I mean, look, I know the act that I have is not the most commercial act in the world, and the types of people that I gravitate towards, including David and Handsome Jack, who both have very unique and special characters, who are commercial in their own way. I love that photo. That's amazing. Have really been embraced by Erica and you know the magic community as it is now, and it's really been, she's made it really comfortable, you know, for us to kind of feel like we have this place to do what we love to do, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and David, I guess we can speak a little bit about when you the first time you met Zabrecky, because based on promo photos alone, it looks like you guys were just in different rooms of the same haunted house.
Yeah. That's actually Robin disguised there in the lower right hand corner.
And I'm inside his hat.
So yeah, I was in Chicago for about a quarter century performing, and so I think the first time I met Rob actually might have been when you came through Chicago. Did you come through Chicago and do a show before they had like the Magic Lounge and all that? That must have been the first time.
For many years, I went through about once a year and did something there. Yeah, and we met there, and then you were talking about moving to, you were working on the pier in Chicago, and you were talking about coming out west, and
right. Yeah, so we decided, well, we'll do a Peller show, but maybe we can make it. We'll get some sort of premise, like we're cousins from the old country, the mountains of Carpathia. We haven't seen each other in whatever it is, many decades. But tonight is very special because we're going to have a reunion here at the Magic Castle. The only trouble is, growing up, we both loved magic. I always thought that magic was splendid entertainment, whereas he always believed his powers were real. So we'll see about that. And then the first thing he does is show up and cast a spell on me or something along those lines. So.
And if I may caption this picture, I do know what's under your hat. It's Handsome Jack.
Yeah, indeed you do. Yes, that's a Biltmore, by the way. So yeah, only the finest. Yeah.
But anyway, but back to the community of the castle and how all of us have been able to come together. It's like a global thing. Obviously, Harrison, you come from New York. You fit hand in glove into that world. Our good friend Stuart MacLeod, formerly of Barry and Stuart, came from Aberdeen, Scotland, by way of London, and just fell right into this groove of working in the Peller. And I got to say, during this pandemic, I greatly, my appreciation for the community and the club has grown so much, and I didn't realize just how much I miss it until it's almost like every day I try to not go on social media is maybe once or twice a week is about what I can handle, but just in my mind, like when the amount of memories and the atmosphere that is provided there, and for us to go and feel this great thing, it's amazing. I got to say, having had a previous life in music, sure, there are nightclubs and musicians go to nightclubs, but the warmth of the Magic Castle and the community of Academy of Magical Arts and the library and all of the sort of sub rooms and branches that have grown from that are amazing. And it's I've traveled all over the world now doing magic, and everywhere I go, New Zealand, Japan, you name it, people want to talk about the Magic Castle. That's really, they want to feel like they're a part of that. They want to hear about that community, and it's amazing. We were experiencing a really nice wave. There was a really great sort of like 5-year kind of golden period, I would say, just even a few years ago, where everybody was like, there was a lot of really interesting acts were coming up, and really provocative material, and people were kind of like hitting their stride. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't, think about it or miss it.
I've got a story about the community of magic and the Peller and ZABRECKY that I'd like to throw in here.
Sure. And this is, by the way, a picture of John and Rob in the bathroom of the Magic Castle, where they did one of their first interviews together.
It's not just the bathroom of the Magic Castle, the ladies' bathroom at the Magic Castle. I don't think I've ever seen that photo.
I never have. That's great. Yeah. Thank you.
So this was, I'm going to say 10 years ago, although I don't really know when exactly, but we were doing Rob and me and Delgadio, maybe just the three of us. Derek Hughes might have been involved as well. I'm not sure. We're doing a private show for Mark Mothersbaugh of the band Devo, and Mark Mothersbaugh and some of his friends. And, Rob has been a big fan of Devo for years and years. So this was sort of a really fun gig for us.
And quick plug, you can see him on Other Side with ZABRECKY. There's an episode.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is a fun gig for all of us, and it particularly meaningful for ZABRECKY to perform for Mothersbaugh. And this was in the Peller, and we had it reserved for this private party. And this was just a performance for Mothersbaugh and his friends. Nobody else was allowed. And we were waiting for the show to begin. And there's a performer from Mexico. He's known as the half-beard man. He's got a beard on this side of his face, and this side of his face is clean cut. His last name is Kotkin. Is his first name Joaquin? Anybody know? I don't remember. Yeah. I think his name's Joaquin Kotkin. And who we all kind of knew vaguely. But so he went in to see the show, and we went, oh no, this private party. So we went to the host who's going to introduce us and says, there's a guy that went in. Sorry, but would you go tell him that he's not allowed? It's just a private show. And so the host went in. He was in there for a long time, and he came back out and he goes, he said he was given permission to see the show. And Delgadio and I went, no, he was not given permission to see the show. Go in and tell him he's not allowed to see the show. It's a private show for a private party. So he went back in, came out, 5 minutes later, and he comes out and he says Rob told him he could see the show. And so we went, Rob, come over here. And Rob came over there. Did you tell the guy with half a beard that he could see the show? And Rob went, no, I didn't tell a guy with half a beard he could see the show. And so we went to the host, go in, tell him he can't see the show. So he went in. 5 minutes later, he comes out, and the half-beard guy comes out and he goes, what's up? And Rob goes, oh, yeah, I told this guy he could see the show.
Were you only talking to him in profile? Is that where the confusion came out? That's a man with a full beard.
Harrison, I don't judge. I look past the little things. If somebody wants to have, a 50 percentile, facial hair or whatever, I don't even notice that stuff. I was looking into this man's eyes. He wanted a seat in the show. Being the generous Gemini that I am, I'm like, come on this way. And I look past his little,
And so a couple of years later, Rob was talking. He goes, hey, do you remember that one guy? And we're like, what one guy? He goes, that guy from, I think he's from Mexico. And we're like, no, what guy are you talking about? He goes, that guy. He goes, do you remember we were doing that show and someone went in and went to see the show? And we went, you mean the half-beard guy? You're talking about the half-beard guy? Lead with that. Say, hey, the half-beard guy? Start with that.
Well, this is why Mr. Lovick here has. We are all more alert when danger is present, and I can remember when after one of our shows, Rob, we were leaving the Peller, and just happened to be that Derek Hughes and Handsome Jack had seen that show. So we weren't getting very far at all. They stopped us with notes. They said, you need to make the Rubik's Cube come back. You hypnotized them at the beginning, and then you need to do that again at the end, and then we need to make that thing materialize. And so it turned into a rehearsal. So that's great.
Well, one thing, David, I think this applies to everybody, but magic tends to be a solitary art form where you feel like you're going at it alone. But what I'm gathering from all of you guys is, in a way, Rob has sort of formed a band again. Does that spirit, would you say the spirit that sort of got, Possum Dixon at its height when it's touring as a band, do you feel like there's a similar sense of brotherhood amongst you guys?
100%. I mean, it's without the pain of being in a band and stuck in a van for 3 months.
You don't have to drive in a van together.
Yeah, you're spitballing. You're looking for the best solution to creative problems, and that's what all this stuff is. I mean, really, at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out, the best light for any given trick, joke. Find your light, speak the words loud, all that stuff. I mean, it's really, we're helping each other. It's community, and that's definitely something that comes from.
Which is unique, by the way, because I used to do nothing but plays, and I remember I did the play Lost in Yonkers 3 times when I first got out of school. When I got out of theater school,
Do you think
and
after
in
the
one of
third
the
time you
plays,
would find it?
what'd you say?
I said after 3 times, you think you would find Yonkers?
One would think. And so the cast changed because the production went to another theater. Anyway, the point is, I got another little brother who played my little brother in the play. And so with the new actor, I remember giving him notes. I said, well, we're not really getting a laugh on this line, but I just did this play for 3 months at a different theater. So I've got an idea, if you say the line maybe like this. And actually, another actress who was playing the lead said to me, what did you say? And I said, well, we were just talking. I would maybe give a little note to Chris here. And she said, you go to the stage manager. And as a matter of fact, you don't ever give another actor a note. And I thought, well, okay, all right. But I mean, it's not like this in every art form, that people are open to this and that people want to collaborate and that people want to learn. That's rare.
Yeah.
But I'll take one step further. In our world of our group of friends and kind of colleagues, yes, all of these people are open-minded, and we all kind of go, yeah, we want the best. Not every magician is gonna, you can't walk into many dress rooms and just, hey, I got a little note for you.
Right.
You have to get punched in the nose, or
I think we've all received notes that we did not ask for.
Yeah.
Right.
From people we did not want to hear them from.
20 years.
I think that within our sort of, within our group, it's very open-minded, and you've got people that really are open-minded in the best way and willing to listen.
Yeah. 20 years ago, I used to do that all the time. I'd go up after seeing an act and go, you know what? And then I realized problems in other people's acts aren't my problem. And so I don't do that anymore, except to friends and colleagues that I trust and trust me. And I know that, my feedback is welcome, but I don't do that at all anymore. And you had mentioned when you introduced me that you read that little blurb from the magazine about how I will not hesitate to tell somebody what's what. And it's not just about, your act, it's about your life too, because you mentioned the story about Rob getting shot and 33 years later having the bullet removed from his arm. Right after that happened, I was with Rob and he was talking to somebody. He goes, and Rob said, hey, I'm sorry I couldn't do whatever. I couldn't meet you last week, or I couldn't call you, whatever. He goes, I was having a medical procedure done. And I went, what? A medical? No, you had a bullet removed. You don't say I had a medical procedure. You say, I had a bullet taken out of my arm. You lead with that, you moron. What is wrong with you?
Again, it's a gentle touch. I don't know if you've detected that. But it's a gentle touch. Yeah. Sort of like when somebody says, hey, go be nervous someplace else, pal. A gentle touch. Just what you want to hear before the show. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your act, David, that you would think that you would consider, this is a moment that Lovick affected or that Rob affected?
Well, like I said, we have this exchange all the time of it's okay to talk about this and to give notes. It's not going to get better any other way. Let me see. I'm trying to. Actually, yes. One time I was performing in the Palace, and Lovick came backstage, and this is before I had started collaborating with Rob. One of the first times I got booked in the Palace, and Handsome Jack came backstage. He said, you're working way too hard. I said, what do you mean? Why am I working way too hard? Like nothing dies harder than a bad idea. I've got a plan. Every single show, I'll force a different card. You're working way too hard. He comes back. I don't want to give the trick away, but he picks up some of my props and he goes, it's a different audience nobody cares what the card is. Why are you memorizing a different set of cards every time? Make it the same every time. No one cares. And he was right.
Actually, Handsome Jack had a full head of hair, and then I gave him the exact note. You're working way too hard.
It's little things like that. I mean, if you work in the Palace and you see some of these guys have to reset takes them 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that you can streamline you're right. And so I think about that all the time. Is there some way that I could just make this a simpler thing? Because the audience can't relate to the negative. They can't relate to what's not there. They can only relate to what you show them. So if you don't have extra props, if you don't have extra moments, if you don't have extra words, they're not going to know. It'll probably be better, you know?
This story will probably only mean anything to people who've seen David Kovac work. And David is a really great performer, is really funny, but he's got an energy unlike anybody you've ever seen. He's like he stepped out in 1935, you know, and 100 miles.
Wait a minute. Does this suit make me look dead?
So Harrison talked about all the people Rob has worked with in the Peller. And I've seen Rob with lots of performers in the Peller. And Rob is always the weird guy between the duo. And the first time I saw Rob and Kovac work in the Peller, I went backstage and went up to Rob and I said, I never thought I'd see you in the Peller. And the other performer would be the weird guy.
Thanks. For that, I'm going to show you my owl mug.
Oh, fantastic! As we're beginning to wrap this up, we have a little bit more time. So if you are watching right now live, please start sending your questions into the comments if you haven't already. We're going to try to get to as many of them as we can. And before we get to that, though, David and John, while I have you, any parting thoughts about working with Rob and what Rob has taught you, or where you think people can learn from Rob?
Well, just like I alluded to earlier, work every day. Try and, you know, just over the years, Rob was like this every day till he was like way down here. And then boom, he's in the stratosphere because he was willing to put the work in and listen to people who, you know, could help him. There's no better advice than that, is just put in the work over time and do as many shows as you can. It's the standard advice, but he's the living example of that.
One piece of advice that's hard to give during a pandemic, but
well, yeah, but this pandemic is not forever.
Exactly.
No, it's not forever. It's not forever. I agree. And I think also surrounding yourself with people who are better than what you do, than you are at what you do, is very important. And these guys are the best. So I'm really grateful to be here and really overjoyed to see some friendly faces again. It's really wonderful. So I hope if you encounter these characters that you take the time to learn from them, and then we'll all hang out. Be great.
I finally, by the way, been able to put the two photos together. There we go. In case people were wondering what Hollywood looked like in the 40s, we have this silent film now, the complete cast.
And as Rob has said, that photo of Griffith and Clementine was way better than the act ever was.
True story.
Okay, because it's a fantastic photo. And that was the first time I ever saw Rob, was I saw Griffith and Clementine. And it's like, you know, the first magic act you ever put together, because that's literally what it was. So everyone enjoy that photo, because you're never going to see that act. And that's probably for the best.
Well, David and John, aka Handsome Jack, thank you so much for joining us. You can buy John Lovick's fantastic book, which is now available in Japanese. So if Max Maven, if you're watching, this is your chance. Steve
Max Maven and Shutagawa. Get on it now. It's in Japanese.
Thank you guys so much for joining. I really, really appreciate it. David and John, so good to see you guys. Stay safe and stay well.
Great. Nice to see you.
Good seeing all three of you.
We are now in, I don't know very much about sports, but I believe in soccer it's known as stoppage time. So we're going to try to answer as many audience questions as we can. Yeah. Erica Larson has a question, which is, who is Rob's dream guest for Other Side? You do have your show on YouTube. You've had Jack Black. You've had incredible guests. But who's your dream guest that you haven't had yet?
Boy, that's a good question. Fred, well, I hate to say this because he recently moved to the other side. Fred Willard, the great comedian Fred Willard, was somebody that I was kind of chatting with. I think Paul Rubens is up there on my list of dream guests, as Cassandra Peterson is also among them. Yeah,
I feel like Erica can help with that. I feel like this is that. I feel like this could be the beginning of something. Another question is from somebody that I've hung out at the castle with, Rob Eltunis. Some would say you portray an uncomfortable character on stage. How do you maintain this while making sure your audience isn't too uncomfortable?
Good question, Rob. It's a balance. You have to read it. You just have to be there and read it, because too uncomfortable means I don't want to be here. Too uncomfortable means this isn't working for me as an art thing in a movie or in a play or whatever. So it's a fine line. You've got to know. You got to know where to balance it, and it's something that you've got to intuit.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is there's the surface level of what it seems like. Sometimes an act that seems chaotic is actually very controlled, and sometimes something that seems uncomfortable is it's so professionally uncomfortable that everybody is comfortable because they know the train is still on the tracks.
Exactly. Yeah, and only you know where to push. How to navigate that.
And a TikTok star is in the building. I don't know if you're on TikTok, but Michael Rayner, TikTok star, and a fantastic performer. He said, "How did the Unholy 3 poster get in Forgetting Sarah Marshall?"
Oh, that's a good question, Michael. First of all, thanks for watching, Michael. Good knowing you out there. So Forgetting Sarah Marshall was a film from 2003 or 2004 from Judd Apatow. I think that was his movie. Judd Apatow is a big Magic fan. And in his previous film or films, one of them being The 40-Year-Old Virgin. I'm sure most of you have seen that. If you haven't, do yourself a favor. It's a great pandemic comedy classic. There's a Doug Henning poster in Steve Carell's room. He comes in, he shuts the door, and there's this great sort of one sheet, real high, cool era of Henning, floating on a rainbow or whatever. So he had this theme. There was a Blackstone poster in one of his previous films. I can't remember which one it was. So I'm assuming he went to the Steve Allen Theater and saw Unholy 3 and grabbed the poster. Maybe just napped it off the wall. Maybe one of his production designers grabbed it. But I would like to think that because he was a Magic fan, that he maybe saw that show and grabbed it.
And did you know that was in the background, or was that something that you only found out while watching the movie?
I still haven't seen the movie, so I don't know. So I've been informed by lots of people. When it came out,
we'll make a documentary about it called Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Exactly, Forgetting the Unholy 3.
Benjamin Schrader writes, "What's the most challenging thing that's ever happened during the seances at the castle?"
Oh God, that's a good question. I think when. Oh God, this one. Well, one night a woman was smoking cigarettes in there, and didn't want to listen to the simple message that you can't smoke in here, and she's like, "I know," and didn't quite want to understand that. That was one for sure. The other one is when people really wanted to believe and look into my eyes and be like, "Hey, I need you to come over to my house on Sunday and contact Grandpa, or my brother who's gone, or whatever." And that's where you have to draw the line between I'm here for entertainment. I'm a performer like all these other guys. I'm not going to do that. But yet, for some reason, they think that once they believe, it's the old adage: if you believe, you will receive. And people think that you are some kind of a soothsayer. They really I know, but can you still come over and do a seance at my house? And those were always the moments where I was like, oh boy, this is sort of a shaky ground in a way.
Do you find your audience interaction after shows are weird? Because Odd Man is a very distinct character. He can be a little bit scary and intense. That's not offstage. You're a total sweetheart. Not to ruin the illusion, but he is one of the nicest people I've ever met. Do you find that some people are scared to approach you after a show?
For sure, 100%. They just like when you see any performer, if you believe in it, it's a great testament to me that if they are standoffish or looking at me like I have two heads, I went, oh, I've done my job, because they think that I'm that person. Although I don't, make any claims or anything. And it's nice of you to say that I'm a nice person. I try to be respectable and nice to people when I can, but there are times when I can't do that.
There's a question earlier on asking you to talk about performing for Michael Jackson. I think it was actually for his kid. I believe. I think that was one of the few children's birthday parties you've ever performed.
Correct. Yeah, I got one of the greatest phone calls of my life, probably 15, 17 years ago. My buddy Roy Johns from the performance art group, the Mums, said, "Hey, there's a gig. It's Saturday. I know it's Saturday, but it's last minute. Can you come?" It's like, "No, I can't." It wasn't like some huge paying thing or anything, but when he told me who it was, I was packing my stuff and dying to get over there. I have had a obsession. I should say past tense. I don't anymore, but I did have a massive obsession with the transformation of the person that was Michael Jackson since the 80s. Cut out magazine articles, taped them to the wall, kind of like just, it was like Charles Manson and Michael Jackson. I couldn't, and Corey Feldman. I like those three were just like, they were just so compelling. I couldn't, like, I always had to know what they were doing. Anyway, got the call, went down, and the party consists of 3 people. It's Michael, Paris, and Blanket, you know. It was really weird doing my act for 3 people, and helicopters are flying overhead, and it was like one of the most.
And is this the act that we've seen you do? Is this like classic ZABRECKY, or is there any modifications for a kid?
No, it was weirded up, you know. It was like, ooh, let's give them something extra, you know. Like it was. I think he was really kind of like, whoa, they got. I don't know where they got this guy from. He's pretty out there. I did get to dance for him, which to me was the highlight. Was like to kind of shimmy and like really hide the one and really do a real special kind of avant jump around dance, because I know that, like, not that I was trying to outdance Michael Jackson or anything, but like I wanted to entertain him, you know, and I felt like I did that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and one of the questions that I had on my list that I wanted to get to before we go, and then we'll get to our final question, which I ask every act on the show. But you talked about art tiers, and I think that's a really good concept, and one that I think is good for the audience. Because the last question is, what's a young magician? What advice would you have for young magicians? So wrapping into that, can you tell us what art tiers are and why they're so important?
Sure. I mean, I've talked so much about like not being, you know, not a fish to water in this art form, and how hard work is like the result of anything I've ever had success from has been, you know, because I've worked extra hard to do it, right? So everybody sees your successes. Oh, here's this fully formed character. This guy got awards, or he got to perform for Michael Jackson. Like, they just think you won the game of life. But what they don't see is like the cutting room floor, where all of the stuff where you poured your heart, you know, you spilled hours. Well, I won't say spilled or wasted, but like you've spent all of this time working on stuff that didn't work. Think about all those routines in your own act.
Oh my God.
And then you wanted to work, and you've worked it for sometimes months, years, weeks, whatever. And you dream of this stuff, and it's in your blood, and you can feel it. And then you go out and try it, and it doesn't work. Those are your art tears. When things don't work and you're crying, it's not like losing, like your dog gets hit by a car. It's not that kind of thing. It's the tears of the loss of losing a concept, something that felt like it was really valuable to you that you don't have a use for. Because I think art tears come back to you in different ways. You know, sometimes it's a thread of something that might, a year later, you might understand it differently and be able to interpret it and find a purpose for it.
Yeah, and I love that, because you describe art tears also as, normally tears are sad and you feel bad about them, but art tears are something to be celebrated because it means you've done something.
Precisely. And I should add that is art tears something to be proud of, and know that they're a result of something that they've already paid off. When you cry art tears, it's because you've put hard work into something, and that's nothing to, you know, cry about.
Yeah, and I might end up crying art tears, because that might be the best. I should just end there. That's a perfect button. But I do ask every person that's been on the show, we're on episode 23, because this is airing for the International Brotherhood of Magicians. There are young magicians who are watching, who are inspired by you, who want to be ZABRECKY. Hopefully not actually word for word ZABRECKY, but want to be a performer of your caliber when they reach that point. What advice do you have for those young performers?
Work hard, be punk. Find your own way to do things. Don't listen to everybody. You know, stay true to your core values of what you want to do, and try to stay off the internet as much as you can.
Yeah, unless to watch this show.
I didn't watch this show, listen to these words,
but then log off immediately.
Exactly. Watch my TV show, my book, me. Yeah. No, just find your own way to do things, and it's so easy to it's so easy for me to sit here and say that, and so hard to do. So just know that when you go, yeah, okay, I'm going to take Zabrecky's advice, and then you're staring at a blank piece of paper for a month, that something will appear, and the right thing will appear if you continue to work at it. Don't quit. Don't quit. That's it. I mean, everyone says that, but quitting is it's such a loser thing.
No, I love that. I mean, I think that's fantastic advice. Rob, I cannot thank you enough. It is so good to see you.
You too, Harrison. You too.
So good. And nice to see you in a shirt. Normally when we see each other, it's for virtual yoga.
That's true. All buttoned down today, and thank you. I love your show. I think you're doing a great service for the magic community, and I look forward to seeing you in person when the time's right.
Absolutely. Mwah. I love you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank
And if you want to follow Rob Zabrecky on Twitter, go to @RobZabrecky. If you'd like to buy this incredible book, it's right over here. Strange Cures by Rob Zabrecky, available on Amazon or all major booksellers. And of course, you can check out Other Side with Zabrecky on YouTube. Just type in Other Side with Zabrecky when you go to youtube.com, and you can pull up some incredible videos. They're really fun, really great. Rob, thank you so much for joining, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. See you later.
Take care. Amazing. Oh my gosh. This has been an incredible episode. I can't thank Rob enough for being a part of this. Also, our special guest, Handsome Jack, John Lovick, whose book is also amazing, Handsome Jack, etc. by John Lovick, which is available from Vanishing Ink and now in Japanese. Also in Vanishing Ink is an astonishing essay by Rob Zabrecky. It is an astonishing essay, but that is also the name of the series, Astonishing Essays. You can purchase that as well. Those have a lot of things that are in the lecture notes. So make sure you check all of those things out. A huge thank you to everybody who's watching. Erica Larson, Michael Rayner, people from literally all around the world. We have a Russian viewer. It might be our first Russian viewer ever. Viewers from Australia, Florida. Stay safe. We have Canada in the house as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure you download the old episodes as a podcast as well on Apple Music or iTunes. Just go to whobooksit.com. That's pretty easy to remember. Whobooksthat.com. I'll put it up on the screen. There we go. And it's every Wednesday at 4 p.m. if you are on the West Coast, 7 p.m. if you're on the East Coast. And a huge thank you to Alexander, our outgoing president of the International Brotherhood of Magicians, and our incoming president. A huge congratulations to Stephen Bergazzi, who is taking over. And you can join this great organization, magician.org/join-the-IBM/join. Next week's episode is Steve Valentine. I'm super excited to talk to him. I think it's going to be a really great episode. So make sure you tune in. Same time, same place, every Wednesday, 7 p.m. or 4 p.m. My name is Harrison Greenbaum. A huge thank you, by the way, to Benjamin Budzak, who did the animation way back in the day. And I thanked him in earlier programs, but I want to thank him one more time because the animation is really cool. And that's how we're going to end the episode, is with that animation. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Harrison Greenbaum, and this has been Who Books That? Who books that? I'm singing a theme song because nothing's recorded. Who books that with Harrison Greenbaum? Thanks for watching. Why am I singing this song?